This is Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today on this fine Friday. I hope you're having a good day so far and getting ready to head into this first weekend of NFL football, which, by the way, I told you yesterday I wasn't sure if I was going to watch the Thursday night game. There's a bunch of, at least to me, there's a bunch of pageantry and posturing that comes with that first Thursday night game that doesn't feel like real football just yet, and it still doesn't really feel like it. But I did end up watching the game. I'm glad I watched the game. It was a good game. There's a lot of takeaways from that game. We'll get to all of those things, including my thoughts on Cam Newton and the NFL's protection of certain quarterbacks. And, you know, I'm not going to make this a particularly racial conversation because it isn't this time. So don't run is my point. But here's the deal. Cam Newton was not very well protected last night. Trevor Siemian looked really good. I liked what I saw from both defenses, and we'll get into all of those things as well. This show, we've also got a weekend of football coming up as far as college football goes that is not particularly exciting. I am so glad the NFL schedule is back because this week in college football, week 3 looks promising, but week 2 does not. We got some stinkers. We've got some stinkers, but we do have Tennessee tomorrow night playing Virginia Tech at Bristol Motor Speedway, and it's one of those things that's going to be interesting, and they're probably going to break the record for the most attended college football game of all time, and hopefully, with that many eyeballs on them, Tennessee has fixed a lot of the problems that they displayed last week against Appy State. But let me talk to you about finding us online. Hot News Talk Radio, we are a multimedia platform. We're not just radio. I think you should check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Those are the best places to find us. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio in those search bars. You'll find us. We're the first thing that comes up. Also, if you check us out on YouTube, you can stream live video of all of our local shows. Video, you get to see what we look like, get to see the inside of our studio a little bit. Also, if you check us out on Facebook, you can check us out with the tune-in, or with the radio plugin, the radio plugin. If you click on that, we stream our radio station live on Facebook, which I don't know anybody else that does that. Plus, check out all of our videos showing you the local doings and happenings around town. Also, the last also of the day, please check out Hot News Talk Radio in the TuneIn Radio app. It's free on whatever mobile device you use. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio in the app, give us a favorite, press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. All right? That's TuneIn Radio. Listen like you mean it. So here's the thing about last night's game, because there's a couple of things to note. One, I talked to you about Trevor Siemian, and I really didn't know who Trevor Siemian was. I'm not going to be the guy that stands here and pretends like I know stuff I don't know. I don't know anything about Trevor Siemian. Like, I saw him in a preseason game. I didn't know Trevor Siemian was on the team last year. Okay? I don't watch Northwestern football, so I didn't know Trevor Siemian played for Northwestern until Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth mentioned it in the broadcast last night. I'm not going to sit here and knew a darn thing about Trevor Siemian because I did not. And I learned last night, Trevor Siemian had a nice little wonderful coming out party. He threw a touchdown and looked very good in that game, very stable. One of the things about Trevor Siemian that you could note if you watch him play is that his form throwing the football is fantastic. Like, he does everything that they tell you to do. Hold the ball so that when you release it, that your bicep is up by your ear and you've got your feet pointed at your receiver and you're hitting the throw off your back foot. Because Trevor Siemian's not going to be throwing the ball. Like, one of his interceptions that he threw last night was a play where he was throwing off of his back foot and kind of falling away. Cam Newton made a similar throw in the game. It looked easy when Cam did it. Trevor's not super strong arm quarterback, but his form is so good when he steps into his throws from his back foot. I mean, they've got all the power in the world, and they've got enough accuracy. He throws into tight windows. And this, I couldn't believe this. Like, this guy is what? This is only his second year in the league. We did not hear about Trevor Siemian at all. And now Denver with one of those really good problems, because they drafted Paxton Lynch to be a guy that would take over for that team eventually, not at all realizing Trevor Siemian, if he keeps playing like this, they're fine. They're fine. And they're probably not going to need to develop Paxton Lynch. Now, you still should probably develop Paxton Lynch, because you don't want to have a situation where you don't have a backup quarterback in this league. When you have a good team and you're in win now mode, and Denver is certainly in win now mode, because Denver went and put down money on corners, and Denver went and put down money on D-line. You built a team. You need to have a quarterback that can at least run and manage this team. And you don't want to be like Minnesota, who also is a very good team. Minnesota's defense is one of the best in the league, and they're designed very well. Mike Zimmer is a brilliant coach. Teddy Bridgewater goes down, and you are scrambling to trade for Sam Bradford, and you gave away a 1 for Sam Bradford. You don't want to be that. So develop Paxton Lynch anyway, just in case something should happen to Trevor Siemian, and then you're not left holding the bag. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, talking about the Thursday Night Football game, the only NFL game that is reached the end of regulation thus far. Looking forward to the rest of the games on the slate. We'll get into the Titans and the Falcons a little later on as well. But I do want to talk about Cam Newton last night, because one of the things about Cam that I noticed was that he was avoiding Von Miller a lot. Now, part of that is the offensive line did a great job of protecting him, but Cam was making a lot of plays with his feet. Cam was making a lot of plays with his arm. He looked like the MVP last night, times in the night. He did get beat up a little bit, and that's what I want to talk about, because the NFL is on this kick about protecting players and protecting quarterbacks specifically. Like, I thought quarterbacks were protected in this league. That's what I thought. I was under that assumption. And Chris Collinsworth pointed it out in the broadcast that Cam Newton was under that same assumption as well. But it seems not to be the case, because whenever there's a chance that comes to protect Cam Newton, like the other NFL quarterbacks, they don't do it. He doesn't get the same protection. He doesn't get those same calls. If someone hits Brady and their hand is on his helmet, that's a flag. That's roughing the passer every single time. We talk about that little tiny window that you get to hit quarterbacks in. You don't get to hit them below their knees, and you don't get to hit them up in their head. So you've got a tiny little window to hit quarterbacks in. Last night, it looked like Denver didn't have a tiny window at all. Like, that Denver got to hit Cam Newton any way they wanted. And part of me wonders if they are not falling for that Shaquille O'Neal paradox. The NFL referees are falling for the Shaquille O'Neal paradox, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to be sitting here going, well, they just don't protect running quarterbacks like they protect everybody else. It's harder. I understand that it's harder. But there were plays where Cam Newton was in the pocket getting hit helmet to helmet, and we didn't see stuff. I wonder if they're falling for the Shaquille O'Neal paradox. What is the Shaquille O'Neal paradox, you might ask? Well, the Shaquille O'Neal paradox is the fact that Shaquille O'Neal is so strong that in order to defend him properly as a smaller defender, and Shaq is, 7'3", darn near 300 pounds, and then at some points in his career, well past 300 pounds. In order to defend him as a smaller defender, and everybody to Shaquille O'Neal outside of Yao Ming was a smaller defender, you had to foul him on every play, which means that a referee could, in theory, call a foul on every play. But then the game would be virtually unplayable. So they did not do that. They would only call the really serious fouls. So fouls ended up not being fouls because Shaquille O'Neal was so strong, and he just had to take those hits. The refs weren't going to call every single little foul on Shaq, even though you needed to foul him a bunch to even slow him down. Now you look at a guy like Cam Newton, who is unusual for somebody playing the quarterback position, because he is 6'6", 250 pounds. He looks like a mammoth. And when he runs and when he gets hit, like, some of these shots don't look like they even hurt him. So when you're a referee trying to figure out like what's roughing the passer look like, roughing the passer looks like it's different on Cam. So they don't protect him like the other guys, right? Like, because running quarterbacks do get protected. I've seen RG3 get protected. Aaron Rodgers gets protected. It's not guys that are mobile that are not getting protected. It's simply that Cam Newton is a different kind of mobile quarterback in as much as he is an actual giant. And it's hard to call those similar fouls. But there's a difference between football and basketball. When you're calling a foul on somebody against Shaq, you're not protecting Shaq, okay? There are two different kinds of rules in games. There are the rules that protect the players, and there are rules that protect the game. In the NBA, the foul call mostly is to protect the game. It's so that the game still looks like basketball after a while. No matter how chippy things get, no matter how physical things get, the game still looks like basketball because I can't just grab a guy going to the basket because I don't want him to score. And if I do, I know that that's a foul. So it's so that the game still looks like basketball. Now, you've got those flagrant fouls. Those are to protect the players. It's so that a foul that happens doesn't get over the top and unnecessary. But that's to protect the game. The NFL's rules, especially when it comes to the targeting calls, those helmet-to-helmet shots, those roughing the passers, and, of course, the concussion protocol for afterwards, all of this stuff is to protect the player. So you cannot, as a referee, fall for the Shaquille O'Neal paradox in the NFL because it's not about protecting the game. Football is violent. We're not trying to take the violence out of football. We're trying to keep the guys who play it alive and increase their quality of life later on after they're done playing the game, because nobody should be losing their life and losing their quality of life over some football. I mean, there's a certain level of it you can't take out of the game. Like, you couldn't pay me enough to play football. I've seen some of the stuff that they do, and I want no parts of it. I want no parts of it. You cannot pay me enough to do that. But that just because you're getting paid to do that doesn't mean your quality of life should just be lowered just because you're playing football and you're aware of what you're doing. Some of these rules need to still be out here to protect these players. Just because you're a coal miner, the risks of being a coal miner doesn't mean that we shouldn't do everything in our power to protect coal miners. Okay? You talk about soldiers. If you're a veteran, we should still try to increase your quality of life. If you were a Marine, you served in our military, you served honorably, and we're trying to increase your quality of life later on down the road. Sure, you know the risks of being a Marine, and you come back and you've got PTSD, you've got maybe injuries, you've got all kinds of things going on with you. Look, just because you knew the risks doesn't mean we shouldn't try to protect you. I'm looking at football and I'm going, like, these guys know the risks. We should still try and protect them. But then you've got Cam Newton getting hit in the head. 3 different plays, Cam Newton's taking shots to the head. And a flag was only called on one of them. And because the Panthers committed a penalty as well, the flag's offset. Furthermore, Cam Newton was not taken out of the game for the concussion protocol, which I thought was the rules. The NFL did not follow its own concussion protocol with Cam Newton. There needs to be an independent neurologist on site who is going to examine you after those kinds of hits. And Cam Newton never got examined. And I thought it was weird, but when he stood up, I guess people just thought he was fine. But we're not. How many times do we have to go over this? You cannot believe the guy who says he is fine, because Cam Newton doesn't remember the end of that game. He doesn't remember. You can look fine. Your body's reacting on muscle memory and stuff like that. You can look fine. He's not fine. He needed to have his head checked. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to be shocked if today or in the next couple of days we discover that Cam Newton either had and or still has a concussion. What is the point of all of these rules and making this big stink about player safety if you're not going to actually keep the player safe? Because I understand that there's, and I'm not saying the NFL sent down word from on high to keep Cam Newton in the game, but let's all admit that with a few more minutes, like what was it, 3 minutes or so left in that game without Cam Newton is a different game. Do the Panthers really have a shot at it? And because we got down to what is it, a 54-yard field goal try from Graham Gano, whom I dislike because he was a terrible kicker when he was with the Redskins, so I don't like him now. I hope Graham Gano miss every kick he ever kicked. But the point is that are they even in a position to do that without Cam? I don't think so. Cam made some gutsy plays there at the end, and I think that almost the benefit of it, of having Cam Newton, regardless of whether or not he is concussed, kind of overrode and overruled taking care of Cam Newton, which it should never do, because that is the point of this concussion protocol here, is to avoid all of that stuff. So we're still not there with player safety. As much as people are going on about, well, they're weakening the game, they're softening the game, like, we're still not there with player safety. Because, again, just because somebody knows that the sport is violent, knows that the game is tough, doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything in our power, at least, to not change the game. And I don't think it changes the integrity of the game to give somebody a flag for hitting another guy in his head. It's just, you can't do it. Okay, the helmets are not protecting as much as it appears as they are protecting. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Now, another thing with the game that I thought was fascinating is that Brandon Marshall, linebacker Brandon Marshall, took a knee at the beginning of the game, a la Colin Kaepernick during the national anthem. And I told you, I have no problems with anybody's reactions to any of this stuff, because controversy only works if it's controversial. Protest only works if it's controversial. The whole point of a protest is to bring attention to something. And making people mad about the flag is going to bring their attention to it, especially if your problem is with the country that flag represents. And it is a problem with the country. It may not be a problem with the government. It may not be a problem with the veterans, but it is a problem with the nation itself. And so Brandon Marshall took a knee at the beginning of the game. And I think it's a respectful way of saying, look, I understand that this is important. I understand what the deal is here, but I am still hurt by what is happening in America. Now, you still got to go out there and do stuff. I feel like just taking that knee does not absolve you of all of the other things that you need to do to make this country a better place, not just for Black Americans, but for all Americans. To do that, the knee does not solve the problem. The knee draws attention. Now it's conversation time. But the fact that we are still having this conversation, the fact that this is still going on, is proof to me that I think Colin Kaepernick did the right thing, because it's working. Now, Brandon Marshall did catch some flack. Both Brandon Marshalls, right? Brandon Marshall plays for the Broncos as a defensive player, but of course the wide receiver for the Jets, and the more famous of the two Brandon Marshalls, caught all of the flack on Twitter. And this has happened before, because both guys have the same name. People see Brandon Marshall and go, oh, this dude Brandon Marshall thinks he's too good to stand for the national anthem. They get on Twitter and just start typing stuff. You such and such and such and such or whatever. Little did they know, they sent it to the wrong Brandon Marshall, who is not out here trying to have any of this. Now, my thing is, if you reveal some of your racism by going after the wrong Brandon Marshall, does that Brandon Marshall now also take a knee? Like, did you encourage somebody else to do the thing that you got mad at the first person for doing? Because I think you might have done that. It's very possible. It's very, very possible. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. And look, last night's game was good. It was a thriller. I thought Gary Kubiak deserves a ton of credit. He believed in Trevor Siemian. He looked at Trevor Siemian in practice, knew what he had in Trevor Siemian, and Siemian came out and delivered. I mean, you got to see what Gary Kubiak's offense really looks like. I feel like you almost forget about Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak made Matt Schaub look like a good quarterback for years. There was a run of 3 or 4 years where we actually considered Matt Schaub to be one of the B-plus quarterbacks in the league. B to B-plus quarterbacks. Gary Kubiak convinced us that Matt Schaub was a good quarterback for a few years. And now he's got Trevor Siemian, and Siemian looks like he might actually be a good quarterback, solid at least. And Kubiak's offense, I mean, despite the fact that they had some of those turnovers in the red zone, they were moving the ball whenever they felt like it against the Carolina defense. That's really, really good, at least on the front end. All right, Carolina's defense on the back end, not so good. But regardless, they were able to move the ball. So maybe there is a ton to be excited for the Denver Broncos this season. We're going to talk about Tennessee and Virginia Tech on Clutch with Keon Rose.
Wars come and go, but my soldiers stay eternal.
Now you can listen to Hot News Talk Radio anywhere streaming live at Noogaradio.com. That's Noogaradio.com.
Hot News Talk 1240.
With every election, the government always gets in. You're right to be angry. We have no free market. Red tape everywhere. Taxes crushing. There's no level playing field. Tomorrow may be a day of reckoning. But there is something you can do. It's personal safety, personal security, shooter supply and indoor range. Find the handgun or long gun suitable to you. Take a concealed carry permit class. Use Shooter's roomy indoor private shooting range. Get expert personal advice. Shooter Supply fights boldly against big boxes. It helps people understand firearms. A free republic has become a despotism. Let them choke on their swag. For us, we invest in personal safety. In the Second Amendment, fight back, shop local. The country is in a desperate situation, but you don't have to be. Shooter Supply, love your neighbor, buy local. 875-4868, 875-4868, shooters-range.com. Shop shooters-range.com. Think about the future. What about your kids?
Hi, this is Mike at Wholesale Liquidation, Highway 58, next to Taco Bell, featuring over 6,000 square feet of unique and everyday wholesale items, discounted to, get this, 50 to 75% off of retail, from new and pre-owned tools to chainsaws and auto accessories. Wholesale Liquidation, Highway 58, next to Taco Bell.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation. 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
This is Mike at For the Record at Northgate Mall. We're the largest complete record store in town. We sell old and new vinyl records, celebrity posters, music posters, and we are the largest in town. Come see us.
Expect fair skies to continue through the nighttime. Mild overnight again, lows mid and upper 60s. Now, for Saturday, another hot wind, highs into the lower 90s, becoming partly cloudy. Tomorrow night, some clouds, may see a brief shower pass through. Not as hot Sunday, though, highs upper 80s. Did you know that you could purchase a home now with little or nothing down? Find your dream home with McBriar Realty. Call McBriar Realty at 706-657-2353 or McBriarRealty.com. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. Hot News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. An armed citizen stopped a manhunt suspect dead in his tracks at a landfill in Bradley County. It all started with a routine traffic stop where two men were stopped in Meigs County. They went on the run through Hamilton County and then into Bradley County, leading police on a high-speed car chase through Highway 58. Their car apparently crashed at a landfill where one suspect escaped on foot but was eventually apprehended. The other one ran. The other suspect shot and killed by a sanitation employee at that landfill. Fire crews are battling an early morning inferno at 4 a.m. this morning. They say that it's a structure fire, but there may have been a woman and a 7-year-old boy inside. EMS is on scene trying to gather more details. Shots rang out on Highway 58 And apparently the police say that it was an accidental shooting. A victim has been taken to the hospital in a personal vehicle. He's expected to recover. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Make sure you like us on Facebook and get us on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Don't forget to support the Mocs. They played Shorter University last week, pitched a shutout, 66-0, and they take on Presbyterian tomorrow. They visit Presbyterian tomorrow at 2. That game will not be televised, but they play Furman the week after. That game will be on ESPN3 at 7 p.m. So, again, if you have a way to go see the Mocs, if you're visiting Presbyterian, if you're heading out to Presbyterian, the Mocs started the season. They're 1-0, looking to be 2-0 by tomorrow. And that game is a 2 p.m. game, excuse me. I know that they were on last week. I believe that they were also on ESPN3 last week. So I would check ESPN3 as a way to watch the Mocs. If there's any other way that you can think of to watch them, I would recommend that you go to Facebook and do us a grand old favor and just put that listing down. Another game, of course, that we want to talk about is the game tomorrow night, Tennessee on national television on ESPN, and the stage is big, and nobody wants to be embarrassed on a stage that big. If the Vols come out and disappoint all of us on a stage that big, I'll tell you what, I don't know exactly how fast Butch Jones is going to be run out of town, but a loss to Virginia Tech on a stage this big with a team this talented, and we know the team is talented, would be wholly unacceptable. Because here's the thing that Butch Jones doesn't realize, or at least has not seemed to realize, or at least never talks about, because he's Butch Jones, and Butch Jones is not one for much talking anyhow, is this. Butch Jones is a guy that recruits incredibly well. He's a brilliant recruiter. But there are two problems to how good Butch Jones is recruiting. One problem with how good Butch Jones is recruiting is that it makes this sort of unofficial promise with the fan base that, look, we've got the talent here, so we're going to win. People start to expect you to win when you keep pulling in a bunch of 4 stars and 5 stars. Eventually, we expect that talent to turn the tide of everything else, turn the tide of reputation, turn the tide of these hurt feelings that Vols fans have had for such a long time, because they've basically been disappointed for so long, and they're tired and sick of it. They want all of that stuff to go, and the talent ought to do some turning of it. Because I remember I had a good friend who's possibly one of the biggest Tennessee fans I've ever met. He knows everything. He knows everything. And on National Signing Day, he was following. National Signing Day might have been more exciting to him than game day. National Signing Day was a huge winning day, especially that first one that Butch Jones had, where Tennessee started pulling in 4 stars and 5 stars, and people were like, what? All these people are going to Tennessee? Yeah, man. All these people are going to Tennessee. And it was very cool. And you were trying to see, okay, where is all the talent going to take us? Where are we going with all of this stuff? And we still ended up having a season where we were just a little bit short. But everyone's like, no. It's fine. It's fine, because we're still young. We're still young. And then it happened again. Butch Jones, another great recruiting class. All right. You're looking at rivals. You're looking at 24/7. everything could not look better. You're a top 5, top 10 recruiting class. And again, people are like, okay, here it comes. We finally got all this talent. It's developing. And then, last year you lose the games that you lost, that Florida game and the Oklahoma game being the 2 backbreakers that you should have won. And then the Arkansas game being your WTF. How the hell did this happen game? And everyone's like, look, we're still young. But this is not the year that anybody wants to have to make that excuse ever again. Like, everybody is tired of going, we're still young. A, because it is no longer true. Your quarterback is a senior. And B, because, you want to actually be good. You actually want to be good. So Butch Jones and these recruiting classes are making these unofficial promises, and then they're just not living up to all of that hype, which, again, is not necessarily the team's fault, because it's not like guys are not trying to win, and it's not like Butch Jones made that promise and built that hype himself. He didn't do it. He didn't come out and say, he didn't act like Brett Bielema, like, oh, we're the greatest thing. Like, no, he didn't come out here and say all of that. In fact, Butch Jones notably is a guy who says nothing. He says lots of words, to be clear. Butch Jones uses lots of words, and then in effect with those words doesn't say a whole heck of a lot. I just don't get it with that guy. But regardless, when it comes to Butch Jones, he didn't build the hype himself. So I kind of feel bad for him. But at the same time, when you've got talent, like, bro, win. That's all you've got. You need to win. You need to deliver. Right? If you give somebody a loan, if you give somebody an advance on something and they're saying they're going to come back and make a profit off of it, like, you expect them to actually come back with something. Okay? And you will accept a few moments of, look, man, I just don't have the money right now. But like, you expect to be paid back. That's what this is. It's like you're taking out a loan of the fans' hope, and then, we're going to make some excuses for you, like, okay, no, they're still working on it. But your quarterback is a senior. Josh Dobbs is a senior. Like, you need to go out and win. You just need for it to happen. And connected to those unofficial promises that are not necessarily being lived up to. And again, they're not Butch Jones' fault directly. He didn't assemble the hype train, put down the tracks, and then decide to be the conductor. The hype train was here before him and will remain here long after he is gone. But the other part of that, right? Like, the other connecting issue here is, if you are Tennessee and you're making these unofficial promises of talent, where the hell is our offensive line? Like, if you're a Vols fan, that has to be your number one question. We got all these 4 stars and all of these 5 stars, and our recruiting class was once again in the top 10, and that's amazing, and it looks like we're back. But after all of this, the hell is our O-line? Because Josh Dobbs has been the quarterback, okay? And he is the guy that he is. Limitations and strengths, right? And to be fair, Josh Dobbs' strengths have done wonders in hiding the fact that the offensive line is this bad. It's not good. Josh Dobbs has been covering up how bad the offensive line is with his mobility this entire time. But if you watch the Vols play, they don't protect the passer very well. And now, for as much as I have poked fun at Josh Dobbs, and he can't throw the ball very far, and he's Grayson Lambert's his arm twin, I make fun of him all the time. I can't even blame Josh Dobbs for not attempting to throw the ball down the field as much as he should, because you wouldn't be able to throw the ball down the field either. Not with the time that he's got. Nobody looks good behind a bad offensive line. And there are things that you can do to hide that. You can have a quick release. You can run short passes. And Josh Dobbs on those intermediate to short routes that weren't necessarily great last night or Thursday night last week either. Understandably, they weren't particularly great. But he was making those throws under pressure also. And then he didn't have the time to take those deep shots down the field because those routes you're trying to get those routes to develop. And then they just give up on the passing game and just start running the ball with the 3 running plays that Tennessee has. Let's run a stretch to the right. Let's run a stretch to the left. Let's run a dive up the middle. And there's no diversity from that. We don't have any counter runs. Nothing. It's just a stretch to the right, stretch to the left, dive up the middle. Every single time. Every single time. The diversity in the run game, I wonder how much even that is being limited by the offensive line. But Appalachian State ate Tennessee's offensive line last week. All of those guys looked overmatched. What do you expect Josh Dobbs to do? He's not a magician. I understand that every broadcast, every year, they have to tell you, they have to remind you, Joshua Dobbs is studying aerodynamic engineering. He's a rocket scientist. He's a rocket scientist. They make sure to tell you that every single week. Is there anybody in this entire state by now that doesn't know, hey, have you heard that Josh Dobbs is a rocket scientist? I hear they mention that fairly frequently in the broadcast. They mention it, just any opportunity they get. And then when the national media finally covers a Tennessee game, then that's how that works too, right? They just get introduced to the concept of, their quarterback is literally a rocket scientist. Have you heard? And we just keep running out here with this over and over and over again. And look, I understand. He's a rocket scientist. You know what Josh Dobbs isn't? A magician. And by the way, he's done enough magic so far. Disguising this offensive line, he has done enough magic so far. There's only so far you can go. And I understand that, if you are a guy with a super fast release and everything else, if Josh Dobbs were more Trevor Siemian-esque, maybe he could get rid of the ball 10 times as quickly. But it still doesn't change the fact that on those deep throws, he can't set up for any of that because the offensive line, you've got 5 turnstiles pretending to be human beings wearing helmets. It is crazy to me. I've never in my whole life seen anything quite like that. It's to me that this is what's going to happen at Virginia Tech. We're going to learn how good Virginia Tech's defensive line is, because if they're not good, Tennessee's going to score a lot of points. I think that they're still very much capable of that. I don't think that this is a team that is offensively as inert as they looked last week. But if it's all line play, it's all this stuff is getting won in the trenches. And if you're going to have an offensive line that's going to continue to look that overmatched, right? That continually smaller than the other team, and the other team is an FCS school, then guess what? You're going to lose a lot of games when you start to get to these bigger schools. I don't know what they're going to do when they start to play Alabama in that stretch of 4 games. Alabama's defensive line, those are big guys. Okay, maybe not as much experience as the previous defensive line, but those are big guys. And then you go over to A&M, their defensive line. Those are mountains pretending to be people. Those are gigantic humans. And if a line is just big and that's all it takes for them to beat you, then you've got problems. You've got real big problems. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I want to talk about the Tennessee Titans a little bit because, they play the Minnesota Vikings. So I guess it's the first test of Sam Bradford, what he looks like in Minnesota. He doesn't really know the offense. He just got there. So Tennessee, I think, defensively has an opportunity against the quarterback who's not even close to elite. We're just mad at Sam Bradford for a litany of reasons. One of which is that Sam Bradford is a number 1 overall pick quarterback who got paid a ton of money when rookie quarterbacks could get paid a ton of money before they proved anything, and then proceeded to go out into his NFL career and not really produce at that level. Sam Bradford hasn't been terrible. And by the way, last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the league leaders in the NFL in dropped passes. So it's not like Sam Bradford went out there and just laid a complete egg. His teammates helped him. And he's got a lot more talent now in Minnesota. Sam Bradford really has an opportunity here to resurrect his career. This is probably his last chance. If he doesn't look good here, he ain't looking good anywhere. All right. So Minnesota's trying to patch up their quarterback hole that they lost when Teddy Bridgewater, about damn near lost his leg. Literally. Not over exaggerating. If the team doctors didn't step up when they did as fast as they did, Teddy Bridgewater would have lost his leg. Like, we don't know if he'll ever play football at the same level that he was, but I'm glad dude can still like walk as an option in life. Because that was a non-contact injury, and he almost lost his leg. But you're the Titans offensively, and you have got to be very excited about what this team is able to do. And I understand. And by the way, Sam Bradford is not going to be starting. Just read this report here. Sam Bradford is not going to be starting. Sean Hill is going to be starting this week, which makes sense, right? Sam Bradford just got there. So you have a couple of options for Sam Bradford if you want to start Sam Bradford, which is you either run the most vanilla of all offenses on week 1 of the NFL season, or you let Sean Hill run the show. Because there's no way Sam Bradford is going to get the complexity of your offense. He's been there like a week. It's been a week and a half. He's not going to get it. But it's crazy to me that like you give up a first rounder for Sam Bradford, and you still need to wait for this guy to digest your entire playbook. So you still have to go with Sean Hill to start the season, and hopefully Sean Hill can give you something to work with if you're Minnesota, because the Titans, they're going to score points. I imagine not 1,000,000 points. They're not going to put up gigantic numbers in this game because of Minnesota's defense. That is a stingy defense. And Marcus Mariota has still got a lot of learning to do, I believe, as an NFL quarterback. So he's not going to be, tearing the Minnesota Vikings to pieces. But look, if the Vikings can't sustain drives, if they can't put points on the board, if they keep giving the Titans the ball back, they're going to wear their defense out. And the Titans are offensively, with the additions that they've had in this offseason, and one of which I'm, of course, most excited about is Derrick Henry. Like, wearing down the Vikings running the football is probably your best bet. And Derrick Henry, if we can believe our eyes from the preseason, and you always have to take preseason with a grain of salt, and I get it. I really do. But if you can believe our eyes from this preseason, then you have to believe that possibly you've got a shot to win this football game by a lot of points, probably a lot of points scored late as you wear this defense down and grind them down, but you can do it because the Vikings are in trouble. As for the total season prognosis of the Tennessee Titans, and I would like to give a total season prognosis here. I think this is a team that probably finishes like second in the division. I do think they finish second in the division. I don't think that we have another year where they're last again. And the reason why I would say that, I don't think they win the division because the Colts are still in the division and you still got luck. And the Colts, because they were so awful last year, their schedule should be just weak. You're going to be trailing them in the division. I don't know if I trust Brock Osweiler and the Texans just yet. The Texans got in with a couple of bad quarterbacks. Like it wasn't like they they were world beaters either. But the Texans went on a run late in the season to end up winning the division. They weren't going to. Like, nobody was going to run away with this division last year, if you recall. The Texans kind of limp out to the lead and finish 9-7, I think, or 8-8 in that department there. No, 9-7, and it's one of those bizarre things where, you know, you look at the Jags, you look at the Colts, you look at the Texans, and you look at the Titans and go, okay, which one of these teams is going to actually stand up and win the division? Because they all look like they're playing to the bottom. And the only team that I saw make significant leaps and bounds forwards during the offseason was the Titans. I thought the Titans of everyone else made the biggest leaps. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. And if you're the Falcons, I don't know what to tell you if you're the Falcons. Because I'm a Redskins fan, and our offensive coordinator was once Kyle Shanahan, and you are now the Falcons, and your offensive coordinator is Kyle Shanahan. And I don't think that Kyle Shanahan is a very good offensive coordinator. Can I just say it? Like, the variety of plays that he calls, there's not a wide variety. They might give you a bunch of different looks, but like, Kyle Shanahan has not been the offensive coordinator of a lot of great offenses. They tend to somehow look more basic than they ought to look. And Matt Ryan has been fantastic since he entered the league. He's been a good quarterback, and I know that I think we're more critical of him because it's the team around here. But Matt Ryan is a guy that's been solid his entire career. And then, like, last year, I don't think he's ever looked worse. And that was also the year that he met up with Kyle Shanahan. Coincidence? Maybe. I'm just saying that's something to think about. And they open up their season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1 p.m. game on Fox. And look, the Bucs, that could be a team that makes a few leaps and bounds forward. I'm interested in seeing the development of Jameis Winston. But I just don't think that the Bucs are actually better than the Falcons are. Like, this whole division feels like it's up for grabs. I don't actually think that the Bucs are better than the Falcons are. Which is crazy because, you know, if you watch the second half of last season, it felt like everybody was better than the Falcons are. But in the case of Tampa Bay, I don't think that they actually are, but I think that at very key positions, Tampa Bay kind of comes out on top. I don't know that Atlanta necessarily wins this game. I think it's a game that they should win because it's a divisional game to start the season. And for them, this is hugely important to try and get back on track, try and get a W. After last season, you did manage to beat the Panthers at the very, very end of the season. But my gosh, did you make that entire football thing look really, really difficult to do. Prognosis for the whole season? Hard to tell. Schedule looks tough. Down the road, you've got the Panthers. You've got the Broncos in week 4 and 5. You've got the Seahawks in week 6. You get the Chargers in 7, the Packers in 8. I mean, the Falcons aren't going to win this division. And it's not because they're not a good team. It's because they play a bunch of really, really tough teams. Your schedule is brutal. And I don't know why it is this brutal. I understand why you play the Panthers twice a year, division, but I don't know how you end up in a situation where you've got Broncos, Seahawks, Chargers, Packers. That is brutal. But we welcome back the NFL, especially this week as college football kind of takes a step backwards in excitement level, especially for some of these SEC games. But remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. I'll see you in 72 hours to talk some more football. Sons of Liberty next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over.
I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy near the Thrasher Light. There's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nacho chips made fresh every day in the kitchen. Delia's, open every day except the Lord's Day. Treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. 521-7145.
Whole body vibration really works for weight loss, pain relief, circulation, and building bone density. Go to Lily's as seen on TV and talk to Dottie at the Gun Barrel Road store and Robert at the 153 Hickson location. 10 minutes equals 1 hour walking. It really works.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important.